Hello, Year 12. Today we're going to start your last topic, and that's your genetics booklet. So if you could have handy a little genetics booklet, that's 2.4. Now you're going to need that as we go through the little PowerPoint. Okay? Feel free to pause the little video at any point and to add the details into your little booklet. The first couple of pages in your booklet really are just the learning intentions, and then you have a page which is a glossary of all your key genetics words. As we go through the topic, it's useful if you've got the list of words so that you can look back. If you're not sure, if you can't remember what homozygous meant, you can check the little glossary at the front of your book. So we're going to begin on page 5, and that's chromosomes, genes, and DNA. Now, you haven't studied this stuff since third year, so this will help you sort of refresh your memory on the information you would have gathered up in third year. Okay, so we look at a little diagram here. We've got a picture of a cell, and inside the cell is the nucleus, and that's where all the genetic material is contained. Okay. So in terms of human beings and other organisms, our DNA is found in the form of chromosomes, and they're found within the nucleus of the cell. So we look in here inside the nucleus, there are the little chromosomes, okay, and they exist in pairs for most of our cells. And they're made up of a chemical called DNA. And DNA is just short for deoxyribonucleic acid. Now on your GCSE papers and tests, you'll find just to shorten it down to DNA. If we look at one of those chromosomes, we can see that there are these little banding patterns here are representing the genes. So inside your cell, you've got a nucleus. Inside the nucleus, you've got all the DNA, and the DNA is in the form of chromosomes. And on the chromosomes, you have genes, little portions of DNA that code for things. Quite often there are characteristics or proteins and things within your body. Okay. Now, these genes are always found in a particular place on a particular chromosome. So genes for characteristics like your eye color are found in a certain location on a particular chromosome. So if we want to find the gene for eye color, we would look in chromosome 15. If we wanted to find the gene for your blood group, we'd find that in chromosome 9. If you look at the little picture here, on the left-hand side, we've got the chromosome, and this is where the hair color gene is found. So this would be chromosome 15, and this is the position on the chromosome, or the locus, as it's called sometimes, we find the hair color gene. If we look at the two individuals here, we've got somebody with brown hair, and we've also got somebody with ginger hair. And the little gene, doesn't matter that their hair colors are different, the gene for hair color is found in the same position on each chromosome. Okay, so if you want to find a particular gene, you'll look in a certain location on a chromosome. It's in the same location for whatever individual that you're going to be looking at. Okay, so what are these genes? Genes are little sections of DNA found in a chromosome that code for characteristics. If we looked at an individual, all of our entire genetic makeup, all of our DNA within every single cell of our body is called our genome. So that's all the genetic stuff that we contain. Okay. If we look at our little picture here, this is a little chromosome, okay, that's made up of DNA. If you unraveled it, a little tiny portion of that chromosome, the code for stuff represented here in pink, is the gene. Okay. In your booklet, you've got 3 terms. You've got the genome, the gene, and the chromosome, and you had to arrange them in order of size, starting with the smallest. So out of all 3 things there, the gene is the tiniest structure. Genes are found in chromosomes, so chromosomes are bigger, and chromosomes are part of our entire genetic makeup, our genome. So if you fill those into your notes on page 5, and then move on to page 6 whenever you're ready. Okay, if we look on page 6, we've got a wee diagram here showing you a cell, okay? And all of the information coding for all of our genes found within the nucleus of our cells. Okay. So first little diagram, the label is pointing to the nucleus. Okay. In the second one, within the nucleus, we're looking at all the little chromosomes. In the third diagram, then we've taken one individual chromosome, and on that chromosome, these little coloured bands are representing different genes. So perhaps genes for producing pigment for your skin, pigment for your hair, for your eyes, your blood group, maybe whether you could roll your tongue or whatever. All of those little genes are contained on your chromosomes. The different chromosomes have got different genes, so you won't find all the same genes on the same chromosome. Okay, so if we look at the structure of DNA, what's it made of, and so on. Okay, now the shape of our DNA is called a double helix. So if you look at this picture, it's kind of like you have a ladder and you just twist it. It's a double helix is just another word for a spiral. And this is a double helix, as in like a double spiral. So the 2 sides of the ladder can twist it into this helix shape. If we look a bit closer at the DNA, it's got two strands that you saw in the last picture. One strand is coding and one strand is non-coding. Our DNA codes for all sorts of, it codes for proteins. And one of the strands coding and the other one is really there for backup. So if you have a look at this piece of DNA, you've got the coding strand and then the other strand is the non-coding strand. You'll see along this piece of DNA all these little letters. And these little letters represent what we call the bases. And those bases make up our genetic code. So if you broke the DNA down, the little tiny units that fit together to make up DNA are called nucleotides. The nucleotide could be further broken down into a sugar called a deoxyribose sugar, a phosphate, and a base. So those three things make up the little nucleotides, and nucleotides fit together to make up your DNA. Now you saw in the last picture that we had some letters there. We had A, T, C, and G, and these represent the 4 different bases that you'll find in human beings. And those bases are called adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. So they're the bases found in DNA, within our DNA. Okay. If we look at this picture, this is a single nucleotide. There's the phosphate, there's the sugar, and over here is the base. And we just represented one of the bases here. The base that's being represented is C, cytosine. Okay, so they fit together to make up the strands of your DNA. Okay. If we have a look at this picture, then this is showing you how all those little nucleotides fit together. Okay, so we've got our 2 strands of our DNA. So down the left-hand side and down the right-hand side, we've got these sugars and phosphates. And in the middle, we have our bases. Now if you have a look at the bases, here's A with a T, and these are hydrogen bonds in between it. We have C pairing up with G, and we've got hydrogen bonds in between. Here's another T pairing with A, and here's a C pairing with G. So what you might notice is that we've got hydrogen bonds holding like the coding strand and the non-coding strand together. And you notice the pattern that A is always pairing up with T, and C is always pairing up with G. So you've got between A and T, you've got 2 hydrogen bonds. Between C and the G, you've got 3 hydrogen bonds holding it in place. So that's what holds the 2 strands of the DNA together. Okay? So within your DNA, you have got a nucleotide. So there's a single nucleotide there. It's got a phosphate, a sugar, and a wee base. Okay? These nucleotides fit together to form the strands of the DNA, and one strand of the DNA is held to the other strand by hydrogen bonding between the bases. Okay. So in your little notes, you have a couple of little questions. What pattern do you notice in terms of the base pairing? So if we're looking at our base pairing, you can see that the adenine, the A, always pairs with the thymine, the T. Okay. That's always true for DNA. Okay. If we have a look, the other thing you might have noticed is that the cytosine, the C, is always pairing up with the guanine, the G. So there's a C, there's a G, and we can see the same again here. Okay. What is the backbone of the DNA made from? So if you look, this is the backbone here. We've got the left-hand side and we've got the right-hand side. And that's made up of the sugars and the phosphates. So there's no real changes along the backbone. Okay, you've got sugars and phosphates making up the backbone. And if we're looking at the bonding then, holding one strand to the other, we've got hydrogen bonding, holding the strands together. Now, on the next, at the bottom of that page in your notes, you have some little sequences of DNA. We've shown you one strand and you just have to fill in the corresponding strands. So it's asking you, with your knowledge of base pairing, correctly work out the complementary strand for the given DNA molecules. Okay, so if we look here, we've got a C. And what did we learn in the previous slide? We learned that C always pairs with G. So opposite the C, you're going to have to put a wee G in here. Next we've got a T. A always pairs with T, so you put an A here. Okay, and so on until you complete the strand. Okay, so every time you see a G, there'll be a C beside it. Every time you find an A, you'll have a T. And every time you find a T, you'll have an A. So you just work your way to draw in for each strand. Okay. Now, what you could do then is to color code your bases. So you might color A yellow, you might color C green, you might color the G blue or whatever. So you can color code your bases. So fill in, what I want you to do in your notes is to fill in the corresponding base and then give it a particular color.